Hey everybody, and welcome to LegalQuants Public Roundtable. This is our first public roundtable. Normally, we do these internal roundtables internally within the group, but today we're officially launching the first of this public roundtable series, where you get to just chime in and listen to the LegalQuant members discuss and share ideas, and hopefully it's a worthwhile learning experience for all. So we're still people are still chiming in, but this will be recorded. So in case you miss anything, you have the benefit of the recording. So today's topic, well, you probably already saw from the title of this chat, is what is the legal quant? So the legal quant, I'm happy, and also Jamie can also jump in. But legal quants we've been running since the start of this year, and we've grown to more than 120 members, and we're all here to really drive the one mission, which is creating the legal quant and making that like an official recognized role. So about a brief introduction about myself. My name is Ray. Along with Jamie, we're the founders of LegalQuants. I'm a tech lawyer based in Sydney, Australia. And we'll eventually go around the room for everyone to introduce themselves. But before I do that, maybe Jamie, want to share a few words?
Sure. Thanks, Ray. So I'm Jamie, and I'm running LegalQuants with Ray. And among us are a lot of our distinguished members of the LegalQuants community. And to me, like LegalQuants is a separate category altogether. I think that as 20 years ago, like lawyers scale through templates, scale through junior associates, they will turn their legal expertise and knowledge into templates and store it in Microsoft Word. But these days with AI, everything is different. I think there is a massive opportunity for lawyers to learn how to basically encode their domain expertise into actual executable codes, in the form of prompts, codes, evaluation data set, and data model. And I think that really drives the narrative of a 100x lawyer. And I think LegalQuants is one of them. And how this is different from a legal engineer is that I think LegalQuants is full stack, in the sense that they handle, they have their own clients. They're not in a back office. They have a product sense. They know how to turn their legal expertise into products that can scale to many people. And they also have the engineering expertise to kind of build it themselves. So that's very different. But of course, we can go on to talk about what is the LegalQuants skill set and what we see, in the LegalQuants community. Yeah, but that was my definition. And of course, I draw this analogy from Jane Street, where when engineering first hit the finance industry, a lot of the traders actually become developers and to create automated trading system and so on. I think that this kind of movement is hitting legal as well, as we see it's always the frontline lawyers that become more and more technical because of the tight iterative feedback loop that they are fortunate to find themselves in. And that gives them a lot of leverage to build something and scale their legal service in the form of software.
Yeah, thanks for that, setting the scene, Jamie. And I think it's a good turn for us to now just do a round the grounds introduction. So maybe Jamie, want to briefly talk about your legal background, and then talk about your most LQ moment, and I can do the same, and then we'll let everyone else share the experience as well.
Sure. So I'm qualified in Hong Kong. And then I used to work at Clifford Chance for like 4.5 years, where I was there in their funds team. And so my most legal quant moment is, I feel that the most legal quant moment is not actually building something that scales to hundreds of people. I think it comes from finding yourself in a really complicated situation and finding a way out. And I think I remember a moment where I think a sovereign wealth fund client approached us, and then saying that, let's do this MFN election exercise, for X dollars, and it's capped fee. And then my boss told me that, we originally budgeted like at least twice or 3 times the price. So can you AI that for me? So I was given just 1 weekend to work on it. But over that weekend, I built an AI system that runs for 5 hours straight, and analyze more than 1,000 clauses, and generating red line against the client's own side letter, and that allows us to basically deliver the work at 120% recovery rate. I think is it scalable? No, but it solved the problem on the spot. Yes, it did, and I think that was a year ago. And I was using the company's the firm's Power Automate account. So I think it's finding yourself in a really difficult situation, finding creative way to get out of it. I think that is my most LegalQuant moment. And I think Ray can share his as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. And so for me, I've been building since high school. And so I've been coding pretty much, making websites and apps every year, even throughout law school and throughout work. I think my most LQ moment is I currently track all of the world's AI regulations. So I built a website, one big map. You can track AI regulations around the world. And I think it's quite an LQ experience because it's normally this takes a whole company to track all 200 or so countries, but I did it as a one-man solo person, and along the way, I learned how to systemize and scale and all of that. So that's probably my proudest moment. So I think for the LQs, maybe just put all your hand up, and then we'll just go in whatever is the order you guys click on. So everyone just put your hand in there. Yeah. So cool. Just wait for everyone to put their hands. And then once I see everyone's hands up, we just go in that order. All right. Awesome. Right. Let's start with Alexis.
Hello, friends. I am Alexis for our guests joining us. And I'm a New York City-based lawyer. I'm a tech lawyer. I'm an in-house counsel. And I was thinking about what my most LQ moment is. And what actually came to mind a couple weeks ago with another member on this call, we got together to study to take a test together. And we had never, we looked at this brand new thing together and we had to do it live and figure it out. And it felt like an adult law school. You know what I mean? I mean, we were adults in law school, but it felt like we got to have that kind of collaboration and curiosity. And just, if we fail, we fail. You know what I mean? As a lawyer that practices. And that is very unique, I think, once you're a practicing lawyer, especially for us. I'm a decade out, I have to be extremely precise. And just trying something and guessing based on our experience and then passing was really awesome. Just to have that experience, to have that social study curiosity. It was so fun. I think about it often. And I'm licensed, in New York and New Jersey. And that's me.
Hey, everybody. I'm Peter Scripps. I'm Senior Privacy Counsel at Axon. I'm based in Phoenix, and I'm responsible for all things privacy and AI, and definitely identify with what Alexis said. But I think probably for me, it's interesting to reflect on maybe the LQ themes in my life that predate LQ. It's there before I really realized it. And so that case for me was before ChatGPT kind of splashed onto the scene. I was doing litigation work and was handed this monster PDF of 4,500 pages of credit card records in a PDF. And it was for this long-running case that we had been handling that had turned into this judgment collection effort. And the question basically was what can we get out of this? And figured, I could brute force this with raw effort and time, or instead try to figure out another way. And so managed to cobble together a very rudimentary Python script to parse through these and get some details out and start to group these records in an intelligent way and at least sort them. So definitely not the sort of ease that you have with AI tooling today, but I think gave me a taste of that approach where it's there is a better way, there's a more scalable way, and interesting to reflect on now how that theme has carried on.
Maybe Julian, since your hand is up.
Oh, sorry, I lost track of what number we're on.
Oh, good.
Hi, everybody. My name's Julian. I have a interesting journey to get here. I graduated law school in 2008, joined Cooley as an associate, and then quickly realized that that's not quite what I wanted to do. I left law entirely and taught myself how to code, and spent the next 10 plus years writing iOS applications, both for consumer and on the enterprise side. And then 3 years ago, came back to practicing law. Right now, I do my own solo practice in probate, estate administration, and trust planning down here in San Diego, California. My most LQ moment, I think, it's actually related to the work I do. I use there's very expensive software we use for making these trust documents. They're very complicated contracts, and then the assembly of the entire package is complicated. And I don't like the way that the software works. I realized like, oh, like I could just like make that software myself instead and have the exact user experience I want as the attorney in building these things, as well as the deliverable that I want to give to the client. So yeah, that was my and I've been working on that project for the past couple months now. So yeah, but happy to meet you all. Or I guess see you all, or introduce myself. But hi.
Thanks, Julian. Hi, everyone. I'm Tristan Tan. I'm based in Melbourne and working in tax for in-house tax for an Australian fund manager. As part of tax, I also work with a lot of accounting, finance, and the M&A division. So quite a broad spectrum from my area. But my LQ moment is very close to Julian's, and it kind of stole my idea on this one, is because my LQ moment came in when you realize that you really want to build something. No one has it on the market. You know exactly what you want, and now you can build it. And not only can you build that, but you can reach out to every other team in the division and go, what do you need from my application that I could build too? And collaboratively, you work on an application in-house that solves everyone's problem. So it's really that collaboration approach of AI is not just contained to me. It's actually finding the right people that want to build something together, and then ultimately creating a product that you're all proud in, that has all the features that you want, not limited by what the current software that you're using can actually do. So that's my proudest LQ moment across the divisions.
Awesome. Thanks, Tristan. And Dipti?
Hi, everyone. I'm Deepti Sharma. I head the legal technology team at TriLegal. So I'm an engineer and a lawyer by background, and I guess I've been waiting all my life for LQ movement to pick up, because as lawyers, as I was earlier in knowledge management team with two leading Indian law firms, and I always thought there was a better way to do things. Even back then, we were using VBA to make Excel sheets to generate drafts of documents automatically. And my favorite LQ moment has been, the first time we tried Jamie's tabular review and we showed it to our management. They were like, what did you do? I'm sorry, I have a toddler around. It's early morning. He's yet to go to his daycare. But that was the moment. That was the moment that sort of cast in stone our belief as a firm as well in what LQ is building. And every day there's a moment like this morning when I saw LQ Spire, I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, Joel?
Hello, everyone. Joel Kaufman. I'm an attorney licensed in California and Nevada, and got my start with software in middle school and using open source software to try to cheat at video games. And now this software knowledge has continued and has now allowed me in the AI era to create real client outputs. And as Julian said, if I don't like the user interface, if I don't like the tool, I can build it myself. And the estate planning, business law, and litigation I do is specialized, and the way that I work is specialized, and not everyone is going to want to see things like I do. But I think one of the most LQ moments that I've seen is that there'll be discussions like this, and it will be helping each other work on a new tool that we're building to share HTMLs or to make a client portal. And then at the end of that, it'll then transition to a discussion of mental health and how to manage a busy law practice while also coding and doing all of the different things that we're doing. And I think that's really emblematic of the community of builders, but really that community aspect. And, before all of this, there may not have been that much in common between all these attorneys and solicitors around the world, but it's really shown us the power of connection and of being able to share your ideas and get pushback, and to have that collaboration and be able to build really incredible things.
Thanks, Joel. James?
Morning, guys. I think possibly my most LQ moment is waking up at 3 a.m. London time to join this call. But no, yeah, I'm a litigator in London, and I've been doing AI-assisted coding for about 1.5 years now. And actually, I think my most LQ moment was posting something on LinkedIn and then getting a connection with Jamie, and I think with some others at the same time, because it went sort of a little bit viral, and then realizing that we were all doing the same thing, and this was just back in last November, and realizing that we wanted to form a little community that Jamie had already just started. So it was that process of just putting yourself out there, building something outside of your comfort zone, and then meeting other people. And really, it's just carried on in the same vein every day since then.
Thanks, James, and thanks for waking up at your time to attend. And
Worth
Josh.
it.
Hi, my name is Joshua. I am a former insolvency and litigation solicitor based in New Zealand, currently working in the South as a credit manager of the credit management debt recovery team at a construction firm in New Zealand. Probably the most LQ moment is that because we still deal with quite a few debt recovery litigation cases, and our stakeholders aren't lawyers, so lay people. So we deal with a few defendant matters, and we sort of act as the liaison between the business unit and the external counsel. So something that I did recently was create an HTML dashboard that sort of puts a sort of comparison between our initial statement of claim with the statement of defense with each point, and we give all of the documents, so the AI already sort of like provides like a fill-in of what each clause should be and whether to admit, decline, or get further information. But the real LQ moment, I guess, was that it needs to be as low tech as possible. So all of this was built within Microsoft Copilot. Was it difficult? Yes, but it does what it needs to do. So yeah, all good.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for just sharing your background. So let's just get straight into just some questions. So we'll also respond to audience questions, but I think for now, I'd love to take this opportunity for each of us to sort of just talk about what's a common misconception about legal quants or being an legal quant that you'd love to dispel or tackle today. Maybe I'll start with Jamie, since, is there anything you really want to share today on this question?
Sure. I think the biggest misconception is that, well, this is like, there are two things. The first thing is, well, these are just lawyers that are, vibe coding, and then, and this is not actual engineering. And so I think the issue with that is, of course, I don't think that lawyers should be learning coding like all together as a separate discipline. I think it's all about how do we distill our domain expertise into something that's scalable. It's about that process. And as the coding models become better and better, there are ways to write software that is more production ready, that is more secure. And then we're all about finding that framework. That's why, even within the legal quants community, we talk a lot about, well, how do we actually find the best OCR models, and what's the pipeline for that? What's the docx manipulation method that's the best? What is the best retrieval method? And I think that whichever method that you end up choosing, that involves a level of legal judgment. Like, for example, if you look at a vendor kind of product, you look at it, and it seems to me that most of them are like black boxes that you can't really see behind. Beneath the hood, like, what is it? What is the model that's using? How do I evaluate that as actually doing the job that I want to do? What's the architecture like? And I think that the reason why LQs care is because even coming up with that architecture or pipeline itself should involve some legal judgment. And for LQs, it's we design these kind of systems because we're applying our legal judgment, and that is different, from being a pure engineer. So that, a fellow member of our community, Alexios, I'd like to draw this distinction between a plumber and an architect. So a plumber would be, well, how do you figure out hosting? How do you figure out permissions? How do you figure out, all the bits and pieces that, comes with all, the engineering bit. But I think that for LQs, those things are important. But I think where we really distinguish ourselves is like the ability to actually come up with an architecture that, that has our legal judgment really embodied in it. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think it's also finding alpha. I think that's also the kind of like going back to the Jane Street analogy that they've written, Jamie's. Yeah, it's not just doing the job. It's not just trying to solve for the present, but also trying to work out the future, right? And you're finding gaps in market. You create a solution that no one else has built before, which is why it's called the alpha, and really owning that and playing into that wedge. And I think just hearing each legal quants sort of background. Each of us has sort of found our alpha in our own way. And these are the things that create new markets. And that's really that's what I like to, that's also kind of like my way of trying to explain why the legal quant deserves its own category and why it shouldn't be confused with legal ops or legal engineering or legal like tech. It's all about like kind of really finding that new alpha, and it's all embodied within like the lawyer. And so it's really playing into kind of like, what's it called? Of course, the word OPC, the one person company movement that we've seen across the world. It's part of that. It's also part of the whole high agent. That's a trend that's really being valued these days. Yeah. So that's my take on this question. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add that on top of OPC, there's also this concept called super IC, super individual contributor in software companies these days, where you become a 100x engineer. Result. I think there is no official recognition of the 100x lawyer in the legal world yet. But hopefully with the legal quants movement, we're slowly getting there. Yeah, I think it's all about the alpha, because it's not about making existing workflows faster, optimizing existing workflows. I think it's about actually finding a new wedge in the market, owning it, and then distilling value out of it. Like I can give one example as well. Like one of our LegalQuants members as a counsel in an AM5 law firm. So he built a stock drop analyzer, which analyzes all the stocks in the market every night, find out which drops the most, and then automatically dispatch legal AI agents to look for evidence of securities fraud, and then automatically draft statement of claim for potential plaintiff. I think that with that method, will get there faster than any lawyer in the market, and then at a price that is lower than most lawyers in the market. So that is where alpha lies, and I think would be the perfect example of what a lawyer-built solution would generate alpha.
One for me, at least, that I've seen popping up is whether it's kind of too early, and like, is this too soon for the kind of work that we're doing? And does the legal profession need to wait more before this space, whether it's AI or kind of this super individual contributor, that sort of thing, is more mature? And I think that's a position you can take. It's certainly like the conservative position, and that's safe in the sense that you're waiting for everything to settle down. But I think it's also potentially risky in the sense that you're going to get outpaced most likely. And it also means things like, I mean, there's a lot of chatter internally about like the utility of just changing the form of how you're delivering guidance. So I think a lot of us are exploring HTML as a way to both gather information from clients and also to just convey what would otherwise be like a very dense kind of memo or paragraph as something that's much more accessible. And even simple things like that to sort of question the assumptions that have long held, I think are really, I mean, why wait to start doing that kind of thing? So at least that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, I think I would reiterate part of what Ray said about vibe coding, actually, because I think the value of being in the LQ community and having the kind of constant in-depth discussions we have is that, often you start off having concerns about the kind of criticisms people voice about vibe coding. For example, that we don't really understand what we're building, or that there are problems with security and scaling, and the engineering is subpar. But you openly voice all of that, and then you learn quite quickly. And I think actually we're getting to the point now with the models where some of those concerns about not having an engineering training are actually going away genuinely. I know that that's a controversial view with some people, and I fluctuate sometimes myself on it. But once you've had thorough discussions with other LQs and you've picked up lessons from them, maybe even they've shared a template sort of markdown files with their methodology with the rest of the group, and then most importantly you build something and you share it and you dog food it with the group, the lack of engineering background is compensated for by being part of this community, and we help each other raise the standard every day. to the point where, you know, people build things, I think, that actually are enterprise ready and could be deployed. Not everything can, but once you've spent some time on it, these are not one-shot efforts. These are efforts that take months and have lots of learning inside them. So I think, yeah, the misconception of the vibe coder is something that we as a group are dispelling.
Yeah, thanks, James. And keen to, like, you know, shout out to James building the LQ Spire. That's a prime example of just like the scale, the detail, and the back-end infrastructure that's required, and a lot of engineering discipline and judgment applied in order to even create that in the first place. So, Alexis, want to follow up?
Yes. I think my answer is kind of an amalgamation of everyone's thoughts. I would say when I first heard Alexios use that phrase, I really had to think about what a plumber and what an architect means and what that means to me as an LQ and what I think an LQ is versus like a legal engineer and what my role is as a lawyer, like a whatever senior leadership, whatever your senior legal skills are at this point. And I think for me, the biggest misconception about being an LQ is that building is not legal work for some people. And I think that when you are a lawyer who is building a legal workflow, that whole thing is legal work. It might not be traditional legal work before we have this capability, but there is no one better than you to be able to build your own solutions and connections at your work computer, your personal computer, whatever. So for me, I would say it's not so much like I don't feel like I'm vibe coding. I feel like I am, but I mostly feel like I am using a tool to give a voice to my reasoning. That's my legal reasoning in every part of what I'm doing and building and deploying on an enterprise level, and what that means to hook up into the enterprise architecture at work or even personally. And I just think that people think that we like to make cool things, and that we do. But I think we're making things for ourselves, together, for each other, in a way that lawyers have never been able to do before. And we couldn't do that if we weren't encoding our legal language, which we all can translate when we look at it together, basically. So it's not just we're looking at code when we're looking at each other's repos. I'm looking at your legal reasoning in code, and that's what a legal quant is. And I think that's legal work. So I'm on my own circuit to try and preach that message.
That's so true, Alexis. I think that reminds me of a recent LinkedIn post by the former head of legal at Crosby. I think Eddie, who said, well, I'm building a team of agents to do like XYZ legal work. Am I building? Am I doing legal work here? So, well, if you are doing something that automates, you're building a skill, for example, building a skill for reviewing a credit agreement. I was talking to a resident in our residency just yesterday, who's a partner in a US law firm. There are like 200 different ways to kind of review the credit agreement with conditional logic everywhere. And just mapping out all the logic is a whole week of work. And that would not be possible without using something like Claude Code to map everything out in a mermaid graph, let's say. Is that legal work? Or is that building, right? So I would say that's squarely within the realms of legal work, because, you know, like it takes a lot of architecting, you know, to kind of build out that system architecture, to really distill all your domain expertise and all your professional knowledge into something that is executable. And running that process itself, I think, is legal work. It may be an amalgamation of, well, knowledge management versus innovation work, which, you know, like if we think from the pre-AI era, would seem like a back office role in most law firms or in-house teams. Like, well, this is like legal ops. I don't think so, because that person who architect that could have just pressed the button and do the legal work themselves. That's the difference. Yeah.
Very nicely put. I just had one thought. I think the myth or the misconception that LegalQuants is dispelling for me is that tooling is a permanent infrastructure. I think that the one thing LegalQuants has taught me personally is You can rebuild your workflows very quickly and tailor it to the need of the hour or need of the month or need of the project. And that, I think, is one misconception. I don't think we could have believed something like this existed 2 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the word I like to use now is bespokeware, where it's software, you just build it on the spot to solve for that one problem, and once it's done, it's done. Like, but that's okay. It's pumping out these tools on the go based on your domain expertise. Yeah, Joel?
Yeah, and I think the hunt for alpha is really the key point here. And it's not about a legal engineer will look at it, how can we do this faster? Where if you have the legal mind and the technical mind, you think of things like maybe it's now possible to bring a lawsuit for someone who, it was breach of contract over $100,000. Small potatoes, not enough for a big firm to take care of, or not interesting enough for that. But now, if you realize the legal and the technical knowledge, then it opens up new markets, and I think that's the key there. And then you look on the contingency fee side and the plaintiff work that I do, and there's unlimited upside, and the time savings and the efficiencies go far beyond just making you more efficient. It's opening up things that weren't possible before, and every week I'm continued to be amazed by what's possible now that we have these tools at our disposal.
That's a great point, Joy, because that segues really nicely into a question from an audience member. So they've said that they've spent the past year training frontier models from OpenAI and Anthropic on legal tasks, and they've seen rapid gains with each release. And as models improve at legal reasoning and multi-step and tool using workflows, the question is, how can legal quants build systems that adapt as the frontier moves? So that kind of links back to your point, Joe, as talking about how the tools get better and we're always on top of that. Again, this is open to the floor. I'm really curious to hear about, James' thought on this, because since you always like tinkering around with like actual models and, applying them to your own workflows. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one, and we'll go around the room.
Sure. Well, I guess this is a lot of vendors talk about tech being model agnostic. I have to say, I don't think it's as big or as critical an issue as some make it out to be. You might find that there are some reasoning differences between underlying models that you plug into your sort of custom architecture. But I think, like anyone else, it's not something quantifiable that we can immediately identify. But I think what we all do, and certainly what I do, is build systems that don't rely on the specific abilities of any one underlying model anyway, right? So I don't actually see this becoming something, it doesn't become a problem where, for example, if you change model, all of a sudden your system breaks. That's just not really how it works, right? But having said that, particularly with local models, but I think also with cloud models, being part of this kind of community and staying in front of the news and understanding each release as it comes in means you're most likely to be able to kind of like catch the best new model, catch the most powerful new model, but also understand and then be able to consult with other LQs about, maybe what niggles there might be with one or other model, what kind of idiosyncrasies you might find when you're using them. So if anyone's prepared for, dealing with new model architecture, then it's this group. And also it's just having 100 odd people on tap to discuss this issue with. I think a lot of other people do this kind of on their own, and they wouldn't be so quickly informed about the way in which models perform. Whereas we get somebody pops up, within minutes of a new model and saying, hey, I've just tested it out. This is what it can do. This is what it can't do, right? So again, it's just about being part of the community that gives us the best chance of staying at the cutting edge.
Thanks, James. And everything that you said, in addition to one of my points, is around the harness and how the harness has now adapted to be sitting around the model. So what I had a lot of success is as we are constructing these harnesses that use different models, to think of, if the model's gotten stronger, how does that impact the harness? And I think that was shared in the community of, we need to keep self-learning and reiterating how a model can impact it, because maybe it's better than the harness that we have. And if that does conflict, then we do have issues around what we've currently set up. So having that forward mindset of, yes, I do have a model, and based on the track record, every 3 months it's going to get better. How does that implement or impact or affect the system that I have created today? And being able to plan for that in the future, whether I'm applying loops or learnings, or how can I let go? Because harness can get tighter or looser depending on how we construct it. And I think one of the biggest issues we can have with fine tuning is that we make a very rigid harness around a very fine-tuned model. And then after that, when we want to improve the model, we can't make the harness loose. So really thinking about the whole architecture as a system will really have those benefits for people that are looking to fine tune and create a product or a system that works for them.
Yeah, thanks, James and Tristan. And I like thinking and mindset was touched upon, which again leads into the question I had prepared in the chat, which is, if you had to summarize the LQ mindset in one quote, saying, proverb, or mantra, what would it be? And I'm happy to start. Probably I've heard me say this all the time to everyone, but my favorite line is squeezing water from stone. That, so the idea is that, again, being an LQ, you're not wedded to tools. You just make the most out of the tools that are available. So realistically, most firms and companies only have like Copilot that's kind of attached to your Microsoft stack. Then LQ can squeeze the heck out of Copilot. Like, they can make Copilot do wonders if you know how to customize it. Even if you have no Copilot, pre-Gen AI, the LQs out there were making use of Excel like crazy. They knew all the macros in Word. Yeah, I can see Alexis. Some even knew how to write Python scripts and batch scripts to automate, how to, for example, rename a bunch of files and folders at once in preparation for witness briefing. I know I've done that before when I was rotating class actions. So it's really about making every single bit and ounce of it. And I think it was really interesting to see, Fable 5. When Fable 5 got disabled briefly, I mean, that was a very important reality check for many of us, which is like, wow, these tools can come and go, whether we like it or not. And it's up to us to really work out, okay, what's our plan B? If plan B fails, what's our plan C? It all comes down to you to the individual. What can you do with the current cards in your hand? So that's my line. I see a lot of people put their hands up. So yeah, Dipti.
Ray, I'm going to give that same words quote from Indian mythology. It's called Astram Swamev Sadhyam, which essentially means that in the epics, you have two kinds of weapons. One is the Shastra, which is a weapon that everyone can get because it's a manufactured weapon. But LQs are like Astra, which is the weapon that one must get by, doing a lot of work on its own. It cannot be borrowed, it cannot be rented. And this is what LQ is all about. So you have to have personal effort and discipline to get the Astra, which no one else would have. So to extend what you were saying, that is the legal quant thesis. Everyone can get a Harvey, Legora, or a Copilot. But what LQs build is the second weapon, which is earned through discipline.
Love it. I love to see how's that written down in the chat. So thank you, Dipti. Alexis?
Completely agreed. I think I'm going to rip off Nike. So apologies in advance to their entire council. Please don't be like Disney. But I kind of do, just do it for me is like just do it. Just do it. Just try it. Just do it. And to me, that's such an LQ-ism, because LQ is, again, the only, there are forums that I know of that lawyers as we go to for information. And that is usually on a very 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3, max 1-to-10 base. You know what I mean? Unless you're going to like a professional networking group and then you're asking questions, but it's very different, And this is the first safe space that I have found where I can literally just try anything. I could message any of the other members and I could be like, I saw you did that thing. I could ask a super dumb question and a follow-up, and then they'll help me, and then I'll just try something new. And I might be really bad at it. I might not understand what I'm doing, but likely I will. And then I'll just incorporate something that I've learned into my day in a totally different way than like a CLE would teach me. And even like a networking discussion, or a panel, because you're doing the hands-on practical experience. So as lawyers, especially as like the more senior you get, and once you start like on your C-suite, you're an executive board, you're presenting to the board, you know, like what you can and cannot do and the fun you can and cannot have at work becomes much clearer, and the risks you can take become much. So for me, being able to take risks and figuring out what even means like as a risk in my building and in my legal work now has been so freeing in a way that I just is so uniquely LQ. I just don't know how else to describe it. It's just such a like, you can just do anything, you can learn anything if you just do it, you know? And again, sorry, Nike, just try it, just do it. Just like talk to someone, ask the stupid question. No one else is going to think it's stupid. You know what I mean? Probably someone's going to be like, that's a really smart question. You know what I mean? And it's just such a safe space. So yeah, that's me.
I don't have it quite narrowed down to a single phrase. There's a book I've been reading called Unreasonable Hospitality, if folks know it. But the book is basically about, it's a restaurateur who basically approaches how he runs restaurants, because there's a certain set way that you're supposed to run a high-end restaurant, and him basically throwing that out and saying, okay, I don't care what the rules are, how do I deliver the best experience in this restaurant? And that's both serving the customers who come to eat there, but also the staff, and how am I best serving my staff as well? And I think that's how I approach, you know, as an LQ here in the legal space, is I don't care how this legal product or service has been delivered in the past. I've got no fidelity to that. The question is, how do I deliver to my client an unreasonable outcome or deliverable or product, so more than they expect? So they get that and they're like, wow, I didn't know that was possible way to receive that. And then also the analogy there holds then to other attorneys that I work with, not just the client, but other attorneys. How do I become a teammate to them and am a better, and we work together better, because I don't have any fidelity to how things have done in the past. We have tools now, and I'm going to take the best advantage of it that I can to make this the best experience possible for everybody. So unreasonable deliverables, maybe, I don't know, but somewhere along those lines.
I just want to quickly resonate with Julian's point. I think that's what I think as well. I like the phrase, like I wrote a Substack article on this actually, and my phrase is like best possible client experience. And I kind of mapped out like 3 different ways to, you know, share AI with your client these days. Well, one is like you can basically be a human wrapper and then not tell your clients that you are actually using AI, or you can essentially just be there by their side and then help them use AI, and then just advise on whether they're using AI in a correct way. And I think that, you know, like, that is a matter of actually removing as many middle layers as possible, as many middle AI, as I like to call them. Like, why would you route like your kind of work through like 2 to 3 different AI layers if you can basically help the clients get there in the first place using minimal friction? So, you know, to me, I think it's the same thing. Yeah, best possible client experience.
I love the coincidence that I am also reading that same book right now, Julie, and I think this informed my answer. So to attempt a pivot, I think there's another thing I've been reading that's completely unrelated, which is sort of about children in school and the different mindsets that you can have, and like what leads to success of sort of being a lifelong learner versus, you know, someone who's coasting. And it just got me thinking about this approach in life and in work and all kinds of domains. And it feels to me like this mindset of curious exploration and experimentation is really central. And I think, like Alexis was saying, you know, you kind of need to just take that leap and try things out. And, you know, there are ways to sort of fail safely and not take crazy risks. And just being open to that and ready to, as you were saying, Julian, ask questions like, what if we just didn't do this anymore? Like, what can we stop doing more of? Or what can we cut through by using these tools? Or even, like in some cases, I think part of the skill too is knowing where you don't necessarily need AI, and like there could be over applications or overbuilding. So there's not really one pithy thing there, because I think everyone else had much cooler, like mythological or trademark worthy phrases, but that's the inspiration behind my answer.
I'm going to take a leaf out of Alexa's book, and there's a clothing brand I remember from the 90s. I think it's another American one, and the logo was just no fear. I don't know if people remember that, but I think it's basically a similar thing. Before I was a lawyer, I studied languages, and I feel like it's the same kind of skill I use now. You know, I might not be learning the exact way in which programming languages work, but you still have to have that fearlessness, particularly when you're in the coding terminal, of knowing that you won't understand exactly what everything means, but not being overwhelmed by that. And I think so many people, unfortunately, in the legal sphere, have too much fear about using AI tools in general, but particularly about coding tools, because they just think, well, I won't understand it. And I don't know if I'm brave or foolish or whatever it is, but I've just never been concerned about whether I understand things at the start or not. There's a process of osmosis, and eventually, if you do it enough, you'll start to understand it instinctively, and then you'll start to understand it practically, and then before you know it, you know, you're a software architect. That's what it takes, right? Self-trained software architect.
I just want to build off what James just said, because one of the things, it kind of goes back to the first question too, of like a misconception, but a misconception might be that we know a lot more than we actually do. Like some of the best learning I get as an LQ is when there's an output from Claude or something, we're building something, and I don't quite understand what it's doing, and I ask it. Like I expose my own misunderstanding or not understanding and have it teach me, and then I learn from that process. And so it's not that I enter the space and I know exactly everything's going on, but I expect to be learning through this whole process, and that's how I get better and better and better. And having so it's been difficult at times to expose my own vulnerability, expose my ignorance to Claude or to ChatGPT, because we're working together to building something, and I feel like I should know what I'm talking about, but sometimes it knows more than I do, and I can learn from that. So anyway.
Yeah, I feel like all of our responses have sort of answered the second audience question, which, do you have any recommendations for those who aren't technical enough? So I feel like a lot of us addressed that, but maybe if we could reframe that question, like maybe talking about practical hacks that can help with that journey. So for example, my hack is, for anyone who's non-technical, my suggestion is open up Notepad, click on File, Save As, and you see the file types, you know, JSON, Python, XML, CSV. My suggestion is to learn every file type. What do they do, and what's the benefit of each? Because if you understand formats, you understand workflows. If you understand workflows, you understand systemization. Because at the end of the day, no matter whether you're using a Python script or Claude or whatever, all of them are converting formats in some way in the background. It's turning JSON to images or images to like whatever. So just learn all these formats and you'll be fine. Yeah, so Alexis?
Excellent advice. I have less technical advice, which is whatever your company's tool of choice is, whether that be Claude, Copilot, OpenAI, whatever it may be, whether it's Glean or you're using a wrapper perhaps, whatever it is, open it. If you haven't already, like that's the hardest step that I have found for people who ask me, how can I get involved, is people are afraid to start. And I was afraid to start. I intimidated myself because I was like, I'm not a coder. I don't know what I'm doing. What if I mess up? And there is no pressure to just open whatever the UI is basically and just ask a question. Just if you're not interacting with it, think of something small you want to do. Do you want to automate a Slack something? Do you want someone in finance to stop asking you this question? Do you want sales to stop pinging you about this NDA? And then you open up whatever the tool is and you're like, I want sales to stop pinging me about this NDA. You're hooked into our enterprise structure. Here's what I'm thinking, and just write it out and see what happens. Don't worry about tokens. Don't worry about optimization. Just try it. Just come up with some thought, try it and see what happens. And then at that point, you're vibe coding. That's it. And then you're going to go down a rabbit hole. 5 hours is going to go by and the rest is really up to you. So with caution.
That fits your almost trademarkable phrase, Alexis. I think for me, it's asking how other people have solved this problem. And I don't mean like specifically this workflow automation, but like very often, right? Ray was talking about knowing your file types. software has been working with all different kinds of file types forever. There are like so many ways that people have approached extracting text, manipulating websites, etc. And like, if you find yourself just getting frustrated, hammering away for a long period of time, and overall are feeling stuck, I have increasingly found just asking like, what is another way that others have addressed this difficulty? And it could be in any space. Like I've even done this for other projects that are not, writing code or developing things. And even if you don't use anything from what comes back, it's still informative because it's another approach you can now like reflect off of. And a second piece that's kind of related to that, I'll touch on briefly, is just asking to explain things other ways, because like there's sort of infinitely variable flexibility in how this tool responds to you. So if its responses are not helpful, give it sort of a more specific direction on what you're looking for. I mean, sometimes I just tell it like, I'm an idiot, I need this to be simpler. And that will at least get me like this baseline layer of understanding. And then, okay, we can step it up from there. And so like, don't be afraid to start from basically zero on these things, and you'll build that exposure over time.
I'll just give two quick ones. First, talk to other software engineers because they are real technical, and that's like the easiest way to just really learn. I mean, like I'm in a group chat and they talk about like Tmux and like what the heck is that, but you learn really quickly. Second, I think voice mode is really underrated, and what that basically means is just talking to the AI, just over voice rather than just typing. Because even when you like will come to a point and you'll be like, oh, actually I scratch that. Like even that kind of like consciousness of thought is actually really helpful for the AI, and you can use it to for explaining, just gathering your thoughts or refining exactly what you want to do. But yeah, that's something I found really useful.
A habit I've started doing is when I'm working in a session after on a particular feature or whatever, having at the end of that session, having the whatever tool I'm using write me a memo between 3 to 8 pages on what we just did in plain English. I learned the best when I'm stepping away from the computer and I've got a piece of paper that I've printed out and I got a highlighter and a pen and I can make my notes and like just study away from the computer. And so I like taking code that I've written and having a prose explainer that reinforces what we did away from the computer.
Yeah, as others have mentioned, I think it's using AI is like learning to ride a bicycle, but you can talk to the bicycle and ask how to ride it. And I think that is a great feature, and it's continuing to use that. And I think being iterative with the process. And another hesitation I see too is people are looking for the new shiny tool out there. And before they even want to begin using AI, they want to make sure they're on the best, latest model and the smartest one. And there can be a lot of paralysis by analysis of what should we go to, which one do we use? And my advice to that is use all of them. And it's the same technology in the fundamental sense of how it works with tokens and predicting text, and to be able to engage with the differences and start to pick up on the idiosyncrasies of each models, and also use it on something that's outside of work, an area you're knowledgeable, whether that's food or travel, and get some familiarity with it. And I think that's led to a lot of the creative endeavors from the legal quants. And there's a lot of ways to learn, but best ways to get started.
My one emphasize off what Josh said, the multimodal elements of AI. So outside voices are also images. Whenever you're trying to tackle a problem, screenshots, talking to it, adds so much more context, because AI is a huge context-driven machine. And sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. One screenshot can actually debug a problem way faster than trying to figure out how I'm going to explain this to it. And also with HTMLs are a big one. So always try to make it look, rather than words, use HTML and make it look like a graphic.
I think for me, it's kind of picking up on what's already been said, but for lawyers trying to build, I think there's a temptation to overthink the start of the process. The best thing to do is, if you're a good lawyer, you think about not just what work you're doing, but how you're doing it. And when you have that thought in your head, I think a lot of people don't even realize that the coding and development environments are chat environments as well. So you don't have to start with a detailed description of what you're trying to build. You take your live problem and just describe it while it's in your head and while it's real. Don't overthink it. Just write it down. and then you will have solutions suggested to you. And then you can iterate and you can follow the kind of planning mode process. So yeah, don't wait. Just express yourself and learn how to actually describe problems.
Man, brilliant. And I don't know, Jamie, do you wanna close off? Oh, seems like maybe his internet is buffering. It's okay. Oh, okay. All right, it's okay. Well, I think we're at time, but I really appreciate all of you guys just jumping on, and especially those that are really late or super early hours. And yeah, we'll keep this going. I really enjoyed this discussion, and we'll make the recording available and all that. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, see you next time. All right, bye.